Hello again. Welcome back to my channel, and if it's your first time here, welcome. I'm going to be switching gears a little bit today from what I've been doing the past couple weeks on the channel, which has been stuff like unboxing videos and subscription boxes and that sort of thing. If you have looked at my channel art before, one of the main keywords on there is cosplay, and I love cosplay. So I wanted to kind of do my first cosplay video for the channel. Today's is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be showing off anything that I've made, but I did want to talk about when you kind of run out of time and end up, looking up cosplays and seeing what you can do, and then there is no time, so you end up thinking maybe I should buy something. That's what I wanted to talk about. Basically, I went to ASEN in May, and me and my friends ended up deciding that we were going super last minute. I didn't have any time to make my own cosplay, and I really wanted to dress up anyway because that's most of the fun of going to a convention. At least to me, I think it just makes the experience so much better. So I ended up turning to Google, trying to find out where I could buy a costume, and I'm gonna sidetrack for a little bit because first of all, I know that buying a costume can sometimes feel like you're cheapening out on the costly experience, and B, I know they can be super expensive. So that was one of my main concerns too, but I just wanted to address in that there is no shame in buying a costume, especially if you're nowhere near as advanced to make what you want to make. It's perfectly fine. No one's gonna judge you for it. It's about having fun, and it's about looking awesome, right? For pictures, that's the main part, I guess. So don't even worry about that. No one's gonna go up to you and be like, oh, you bought that and you're not actually cosplaying. No, it's perfectly normal to run out of time. It's perfectly normal to plan something last minute and just kind of get something. And B, I kind of wanted to make this video to talk about not necessarily having to pay $500 for something decent, although it's nowhere near as cheap as I would have wished. The costume I'm going to be talking about is in the $100 range, so that's cheaper than, going on Etsy, which is great because people are making stuff and selling their art, but I understand that $500 is a little steep sometimes for an event. So back on track. I ended up with a very short window of time to decide what I wanted to do for ASEN. So one of my favorite characters ever in any sort of media is Yennefer from The Witcher, and I made her alternative outfit from the DLC for C2E2. So I made that, but I was never going to have time, nor the skill yet, to make her default outfit from the base game. So I ended up looking it up on Google and seeing if someone sold it, and they do. They make it. There's a company called Miccostumes, I think it's how you pronounce it, or maybe it's Miccostumes. I'll link the link below, but yeah, so that's their name, and they have her outfit, and I believe they also have Triss and Ciri. So I looked it up, and the one problem I ran into was that there were no reviews, really. There were maybe a couple that weren't really going into detail. They were just kind of saying, great costume, but there wasn't really any in-depth review to go into to kind of feel okay about buying it, because that was my main concern, getting it here on time and not receiving something that looked terrible or like super cheap. So yeah, I was really concerned. I looked all over, couldn't find much, and then I realized that they sold it on Amazon as well. So there were 2 reviews on Amazon. One of them said the same thing, good costume, didn't really go into detail. The second one went into it a little bit more, suggesting sizing up and that it didn't come with a white shirt. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna take a leap of faith and I'm gonna do it. So I ended up buying it, but I wanted to do this video in case someone else is on the same boat, someone else wants to cosplay again and doesn't know if it's a good buy. So let's get into it. Basically, it was about $120 on Amazon, and that included Prime shipping, so it got here in 2 days, and that was great. However, there are 2 things that you need to keep in mind if you are thinking about this costume. One, it doesn't come with a white shirt, and that is an important part of the costume because the white shirt is what kind of comes out at the sleeves and what comes out at the collar. So it's definitely visible and not something you can really skip when it comes to the costume. And 2, it doesn't come with probably the most important part, which is the choker. So those 2 things I had to buy separately, and I'm going to go ahead and show you now what I got and where I got it from. So the choker I ordered from Amazon as well, Prime shipping. It was $14. So as you can see, it's got the medallion, and the medallion's really well made. Looks just like it does in game. The only problems, at least to me, were, if you can probably see that little hole right there, that came like that. So I wasn't all that happy with that. And the leather is kind of stiff, so it's not bendy. It didn't itch or bother me while I wore it, but I would have wished that it was a little bit softer, more flexible for the leather, and didn't come with a hole. The hole is not all that visible once you're wearing it, nor is it visible in pictures or anything like that, but it's still a pretty big deal, I feel like, for one of the main components of your costume. It was the only one, I think, at the time on Amazon that had Prime shipping, and that is why I ordered that one. But I ordered this one before for my prior costume that I mentioned I made for C2E2. But yeah, so I'll link that below. There might be a couple more options up there now. It's still decent for what it is, and the medallion is really well made, so I'm sure it doesn't always come with a little hole. So if you were, you know, pressed for time, I would say maybe take a leap of faith. It looks good in pictures. I would give it a try, although I wouldn't say it's the best you can get out there. You could probably find a lot better on Etsy, but like I said, this is about a time crunch and not going extremely out of budget. For that, I would say give it a go, although be aware that it could potentially come a little bit damaged, but I'll link that below just in case. Second important item was the white shirt. Unfortunately, like I said, the costume doesn't come with the white shirt, which I thought would be a really important part of the costume and should be included. And also, it was never listed on any of the descriptors that it didn't come with a white shirt. So if I hadn't seen that or read that review, I wouldn't have known I had to buy it separately. So yes, be super aware that you would have to buy a white shirt separately. I got this white shirt off of Amazon as well. It was about $10 when I got it, also Prime shipping. I'll link it below also. According to the reviews, it suggested sizing up, which I did. I would have normally ordered a large to kind of be not as snug underneath, but I ordered an extra large, which fit pretty well. And it's not American sizing, so it says 41 on there. I think it's sizing from Asia, probably. But yeah, this was a pretty good shirt. It's really comfortable. It doesn't make you like sweaty or anything, so especially with the heavy coat, which I'll show on in a bit, it's a good undershirt for it, and you can also wear it for other cosplays or your own day-to-day life because it is pretty comfortable. And yeah, it gets the job done and it lets your body kind of breathe underneath. So that's always a plus, I feel like, when you're wearing something under a costume. So I'll link this also. And now we can get into what you're probably really looking for, which is the costume itself from Miccostumes, or Miccostumes. I honestly have no idea how to pronounce it. But okay, let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to the costume are the gloves. Basically in game she wears leather gloves that have a sort of fur lining, and they look super warm, they look super thick, and the costume kind of cuts corners and doesn't do that. So what it comes with are these gloves, which are like typical, you know, party city costume gloves basically. So they look like that. Comes with both. And what it does to get the fur lining is it comes with this. So basically what this is, it's this sort of like this weird Velcro material. So you can see there it's got the Velcro thing to close it, and it's got some fur stitched into the top. So how it goes is you slip on the glove, then you take your cuff and kind of pop it on, and then it looks like that. It's definitely cutting corners, and this is definitely one of the main problems I had with the costume, considering it was $120. I had hoped for better gloves. So that's something I'd probably recommend. If you do have the time and if you have the budget, I would suggest buying some separate gloves for the costume that look a bit more real. I will say, however, that once they're on with the rest of the costume, it doesn't look nearly as, you know, cheap or bad as it does without the costume on, and it looks really good in pictures. It's not an all the way deal breaker, but it's something that I would have liked to know in advance, or something that I would definitely warn you on and suggest looking into something different. That was one of my main issues with the costume. The gloves. I really wish it would have come with a bit more of a sturdy glove. I would suggest buying separate gloves, or if you have the time, even stitching the fur lining onto actual gloves yourself, and that should probably boost a costume a lot. And I wish I would have done it, and when I wear this costume again, which I will at some point, I'm probably gonna look for different gloves to go. I did struggle with like pulling them up and down throughout almost everything, but yeah, so that's something I would definitely warn against, or just at least advise. So the second item is the fur stole, and for some reason when I was playing the game, I never realized that the little fur that she wears on her shoulders is not part of the coat. So I was a little surprised when I saw it come like this, but then it makes sense because it's got the rope, which you can see like tied in game, and that's pretty accurate to the game, and so is this. It looks a little weird when you take it out of the package like this, but it looks a lot better on top of the coat, and I have no complaints when it comes to this, and it's a pretty nice soft material. It's not stiff or anything like that. So we've got our gloves, our stole, and then we also get the belt that she wears on top of her waistcoat. So there is this. And I'll show you. It's got stitching, it's got the circular buckle, and it's pretty long, so you can definitely tie it, or not tie it, but you can definitely, you know, belt it up to your waist. It's got ample space, and it does do the sort of medieval looking circle belt thing. I don't know what those belts are called, but it does look like it once you have it on. And moving on to the, I guess, big pieces and most important pieces. So you get this waistcoat, which I admit I was a bit confused by when I first opened it. So that is that. It comes with all of these kind of like strings, which come undone. So when you get it, you actually have to ribbon them yourself or make them look like ribbons, which is a great example because one of them just came undone. So basically, in game, she's got them all tied into bows. So what you do is you just tie them all up yourself, and then that's fairly easy. This is like a waistcoat because it slips on top of your white shirt, and it also goes over the pants. So this is what goes underneath the coat. I'm sure that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it makes more sense once it's on. I did kind of feel confused when I saw it the first time, but yeah, just think of it as an additional part of the coat that just goes underneath. And this, of course, is really nice material. It's velvety, it's super comfortable, and it's got the pattern, the floral pattern that's in game and matches the coat. So that is that. And then we've got our coat, which is, I think, my favorite piece of this whole costume and is what makes it worth it. It's amazing. It's heavy. I'm sure you can't really appreciate it because of the weird lighting that I have going on, but it's heavy, it's super sturdy, and it's beautiful. It's got the accents from the game, so it's got the little leather strips, it's got the floral pattern, same as the waistcoat, the buttons. Let me show you the buttons a bit better. It's got the buttons right there, so they're little floral buttons just as they are in game. You've got your sleeve with the white and black, typical Yen. And yeah, it's basically really sturdy, really comfortable, and really warm. So if it's cold out, this is a good costume to wear because it does get pretty warm. But most conventions are air conditioned, so you'll be fine. And it also comes with your pants. So your pants are not the same velvety material as the coat and the waistcoat, They're kind of like what sweatpants would be like, I guess, although not quite. They are also a bit bigger than the top portion of the costume, which was something I struggled a little bit with, that they were bigger. It was a little bit baggy, but it's nothing you can't control with some fashion tape or with the boots that you'll wear underneath to kind of tuck them in. This is what the pants look like. You can see it's got an elastic waistband, so you can kind of tuck it up or however you'd like. It doesn't have any belt loops, which I wish it did, because that would probably help a lot with the bagginess. But you can put it a little bit higher up, and that should help. It comes with the white velvety side stitching, as well as the usual stitching up front, and the stitching from in-game in the back. These, I wish, were of the same velvety quality, but they are not. They're just a little bit loose, a little bit pants-like, and it's definite like contrast of quality between the top part and the bottom. I was really tempted when I saw these. I have velvet leggings. I was really tempted to wear the velvet leggings instead because I felt like they would look more, I don't know, I felt like they would look more in line with the top because the top is velvety and soft and beautiful versus these, which are kind of pants-like. But I ended up just wearing these anyway because they had the white velvet stitching on the side and the stitching from in-game, and I wouldn't have time to modify my leggings. So I went with these. I'm happy I did. They were really comfortable, although they were a bit baggy, like I mentioned. They were comfortable, and there's no mistaking which character you are when you have the full outfit on. So yes, that is the last item that comes with your costume. So to recap, the costume comes with the belt, the gloves, the fur stole, the waistcoat, the pants, and your jacket. And separately, you'd have to purchase your boots, your black boots, your white shirt, and your choker. So now that I've discussed all of this in detail, I hope, I'm going to go ahead and put it on so you can see what it looks like, because I know that was one of the things I was mostly worried about, seeing what it would look like on somebody. And yeah, so I'll be right back and show you what it looks like. Alright, so this is what it looks like on. Like I mentioned before, sorry if my hair is covering stuff up, but like I mentioned before, the rope totally looks like it does in game. You've got your choker. You can't really see the little flaw that was in the leather, so your choker looks good. You've got the white blouse underneath, and then the jacket. And like I mentioned before with the gloves, they look a lot better once everything's on. So you can't really tell that they're like weird and cheaply made, although you can if you kind of raise your arm and you can see this. But you can kind of fix it a little bit by pushing it up and having it stay stuck on the blouse underneath. So yeah, I would say for the price, it's pretty good. It's a really good option if you're on a budget or on a time crunch. It got delivered in 2 days. I was pretty happy with the results, and I think it looks pretty good. I would suggest going for it if you got the budget for this costume, which is $120 plus the additional stuff. So it's definitely under $200 if that's your cosplay budget, and it gets here quickly and it does the job. And I'll show you the rest of the costume as well, so you can kind of appreciate what it looks like fully in detail and not just the top. So yeah, this is what the costume looks like in its entirety. Basically the pants are a little bit loose, like I mentioned, but everything else is pretty spot on. You can appreciate the detail a bit more, and you could see the gloves look better as opposed to when they're kind of alone, just weird looking. So yeah, that's the extent of the cosplay for the price and for the time constraints. So it ships in 2 days, and it's $120 plus the additional items. I would recommend it. It gets the job done, like I said, and it looks really nice actually once it's in person. The pants and the gloves are the issues that I would hopefully try and fix for future wearings. But besides that, I think it looks really good. And if you're in a time crunch and you really want to cosplay Yen, I would suggest doing this costume. It's pretty good. There are some other alternatives out there, and I've seen a couple that are a bit less, so like 90 bucks and stuff, but they do ship from like China, and I'll link those down too, whatever I found, but they take about a month or two to come in. So This one is the only option I found for a time constraint, and yeah, I would give it a thumbs up. Except for the gloves. I don't know how I feel about those, and I don't know how I feel about the pants, but for the most part, the whole ensemble together, I'd give it a thumbs up, and I would recommend if you really want to cosplay Yen and you've got the events coming up. And if this review helped, hit me up on Instagram or something and show me how your cosplay went. And yeah, I really hope it helped a lot. And I'll see you back for future cosplay videos and other type of videos soon. Bye!